Thanks for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
The testimonials appearing in this podcast reflect individual experiences and individual results may vary. Cardinal Health does not claim, nor should the listener assume, that any individual experience recounted in this podcast is representative of what another consumer may experience.
The Cardinal Health Counter Talk podcast, in collaboration with Pharmacy Podcast Network, is for independent pharmacists to learn about the state of the industry, innovative services and solutions, and the future of pharmacy. Join me, your host, Jason Calori, for conversations with pharmacists, Cardinal Health leaders, and industry experts, sharing best practices, discussing industry trends, and showcasing Cardinal Health products and services. You can subscribe to the Cardinal Health Counter Talk podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cardinal Health Counter Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jason Calori, and in this episode of the Counter Talk podcast, we will be discussing all things front end in the pharmacy. We will discuss what your typical front end looks like, why it is important to optimize your front end, and tips and tricks on how to make your front end even more successful. Here with me to provide us with all that great information is our special guest, Kim Stokel, Director of Consumer Health Marketing, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thanks, Jason. I'm excited to be here.
First of all, how have you been? I feel like I haven't seen you in ages.
I know. It just seems like, RBC was yesterday and now it's coming back again.
It is coming back again. It's coming back quick. We'll be in Denver this year in 2025. But real quick, before we dive into all things front-end pharmacy, just a quick introduction about yourself and how long you've been with Cardinal Health.
Yeah, sure. As you said, I am the Director of Marketing for Consumer Health, and I have been with Cardinal Health for about 8 years. Prior to that, most of my career has been all focused on shopper marketing and the retail spaces. So excited to bring that into consumer health and helping pharmacies grow their front-end business.
So to that end, how is the front end of a pharmacy defined? I know we focus a lot of it, even leading up to RBC. There's a lot of design elements involved. I mean, you have your layout, your product selection, and even the marketing of that front end section. So what all does it entail?
Yeah, so the best way I would say is, what is a pharmacy's front end? The easiest definition is usually anything in a pharmacy that is not prescribed, right? So if it doesn't take a prescription to get it, your OTCs, your DME, or any, that is basically your front end. Another way of looking at it is, easy way is to say everything from the front end to your prescription counter, whether it's greeting cards, again, your OTCs or whatever, that is typically defined as your front end.
So it's not literally just the front of the store. It's actually everything in between leading to the counter.
It could be anything leading to the counter. Was just in a pharmacy down in North Carolina, and they had another entire section that was just about, durable medical equipment. That would be considered part of your front end. So if it doesn't require a prescription, and there's even a few exceptions in there, with diabetes, but for the most part, if it does not require a prescription, it is typically part of your front end business.
All right. So now, being from New York, I remember walking in 100,000 different pharmacies, and each one looked completely different, especially depending on what part of New York you were in. So what does the average independent front end look like? Are they all pretty different, or are there some similarities?
Yeah, I love that question because, right, we always say if you've seen one retail independent, you've seen one retail independent, right? That's the best part of being an independent, is that uniqueness that they bring to the table. So they all will look a little bit different. I will say they typically will have some similarities, though, right? They will be usually we'll have some OTCs, right? Vitamins, pain, digestive, very common categories, your top categories. But depending on the space that they have for the front end business, some may also offer a good selection of personal care, maybe even household goods, right, your basic paper products and cleaning supplies, depending on what their marketplace looks like, depending on how much space they have on the inside. Very much like, right, you mentioned New York. They have a little mix of everything. If they've got a school around the corner, you're going to see a pretty good school section even in their pharmacy. So I would say the most common traits is, right, they've got those OTCs in there. And then depending on their community, they'll enhance from there.
So you feel that kind of adapting to your specific environment where your pharmacy is located really should be what's driving what's sold on your front end.
To a point. I mean, I will say that, whether you're in New York or whether you're in Kentucky, you're probably going to have people taking Tylenol, right? There's some
Hmm.
categories that they're not that different. They're more alike than different. And I will say that's probably common across most, right? You're going to have more that's alike than different, but you are going to have a little bit variances. So, in knowing your community and offering those differences is going to continue to provide that unique differentiation that will make you a better value within your community, right? If you have a high Hispanic population, you might want some items that are curated just for that Hispanic population. If you're down in the Southeast, you're probably going to want to have some BC aspirins, right? Because that's the aspirin of choice for that area. So it'll be a little bit of different, but I will say more in common than unique.
So, kind of going back to not every store being the same, are there instances of independent pharmacies that don't have a front end at all? I mean, I've walked into some small ones, again, kind of going back to my time in New York, and the pharmacies were really tiny. It just seemed like you kind of walked in, there was a counter right in front of you. Yeah, there was some stuff on the shelf that you can grab. Maybe that was their front end, but does every independent pharmacy typically have a front end, or are there some I don't know, I guess some stores that don't?
You definitely have some stores that don't. The majority of them do, but I think it's to, how you said it, how big that front end may be.
Hmm.
Going back to their footprint size. We have seen stores where their front end is basically it's the shelving space right underneath their prescription counter, right? Usually you can always put some shelves there. Those are usually very small footprints. A lot of times there may be a retail pharmacy that's inside of a clinic, right? So majority of their focus is all on the prescription because of that footprint and the need of that customer that they're servicing right there. And then we've seen some pharmacies or retail independents that, I mean, they're as big of as a grocery store. I mean, they're carrying everything and servicing it quite well.
So if my store is too small for front end, what are the alternatives today that I mean, I guess, listen, you've been doing this a long time, and I would assume that there are some alternatives for customers that may not have a space for front end, but you have a kind of methodology that they can still access some great products for their patients.
Yeah, I mean, I always do like to think there's alternatives for everything, right?
Hmm.
And, we would always say at first, like, try to at least take the shelves underneath your prescription counter, carve out a little bit, just for at least some of those preventative or there's more seasonal items. So, always having some vitamins in your pain and again, digestive, and those are really good common partners to your prescription business. So just at least taking that prescription counter underneath those shelves. And then additionally, like changing it out, right, for a little bit more like cough, cold could be, when we're in peak season, making sure you're rotating that in, allergy, rotating that in, even some sunscreen during the summer, right? Rotating some of those things in that might be a little bit seasonal. So you're just maximizing what little space you may have. But other things, to consider too is if you're, doing a large delivery business, like, right, a lot of our independents, they were doing delivery before there was a thing called Amazon. So they could always look at, what they're delivering. And sometimes they have a person who's dedicated just to making, phone calls and saying, hey, we see, that we're delivering this, that, this causes vitamin depletions. You also want me to throw, if maybe you're delivering a statin. Do you want me to throw a CoQ10 in there for you for the vitamin depletion, right? So you can do some of that just personal outreach and then have it delivered along with the prescription. Some pharmacies have gone into e-commerce, right? So they'll actually have a e-commerce site that also showcases the OTCs and the front end portion of their business, so that when they are either picking up in store or they're delivering those prescriptions, they can deliver the OTCs along with it. So those are two, I would say, probably the most common things that we see.
Yeah, I was going to guess e-commerce, but have pharmacies really taken to more e-commerce? I mean, you had mentioned Amazon and obviously some other online alternatives that people could get delivery, but I feel like it's a great tool for pharmacists to use as well. Have you seen more pharmacies adopting their own e-commerce website or e-commerce solution in the past several years?
I would say it's kind of a mixed bag. You've got, I would say, pharmacists that are typically like trendsetters, right? They're going to try out a lot of new things. They're looking for new revenue streams to diversify, their business. And so some of those have taken off and, have really invested time to finding out what works for them. Others are still kind of sitting back and waiting to see, is it worth it for them and from that time. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag on that one. I will say that for an independent, the data is showing that we've not seen them adopt e-commerce at a great rate. What they are doing is more a pharmacy website and doing the prescription refills. Having that pharmacy website is really big. Extending that over to e-commerce for the front of the business, while it's growing, it's definitely at a rate that is slower than the marketplace.
Got it. Which kind of tees me up for the next question here. Why is it important to really have a front end impact in each of your stores? I mean, what are the biggest reasons that a retail independent pharmacy should have a front end in their store?
No, that's a great question. I really think what I love about that independent pharmacy and how they think about their business is they are so centralized on that patient, right? They're into that community and really care about that patient. So the first two reasons I always go to is self-care and enhanced patient care, right? Self-care right now is an integrated part of healthcare. Offering preventative products that help patients prevent or slow down before getting to that chronic need state is caring for your patient. So, offering that probiotic that helps them have better gut health before that gut turns into something that's a more chronic need states that's actually, leading into something more troublesome.
Mm-hmm.
Having those alternatives there for them to be part of that self-care is huge, because it is a very big part of the healthcare continuum right now. But then I think it's just also part of enhanced patient care. And it's going back to right, if you've got a patient that's taking a statin, muscle fatigue, pain is very common side effect of those statins. So suggesting taking a CoQ10 to help offset that from the get-go, that's just part of an enhanced patient care, right? Taking care of that whole patient and not just dispensing that prescription. The other balance of that too is there's also a good margin benefit into that pharmacy, right? They're, right now where depending if their margins leaking in different parts of their business, as things are changing in reimbursements and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
the OTCs are a great margin benefit and can be a good profit booster for pharmacies.
Yeah, so good offsetting benefits for both the pharmacy and the patient, you would say.
100%. If you are especially offering OTC benefits, right, in helping to remind patients that, if they're on Medicare, that they have OTC benefit card. And if you are taking those benefit cards, then you're helping the patient, maximize that benefit, and you're getting the OTC to help take care of their, entire health situation. And then additionally, you're going to get the margin from that OTC. So it helps tremendously.
All right. So next question is kind of a, I don't know, two-parter, maybe three-parter for you. what can a high performing front end do for a pharmacy versus a low performing front end? And with that said, what are some of the reasons why some don't have a high performing front end versus a low performing front end? I just want to kind of see what the correlation is. I mean, we have benefits to both the patient and the pharmacy. So I'm wondering what those reasons are and what the benefits are like in the end, a high performing versus a low performing. What does that eventually lead to that you've seen in the bottom line for pharmacy?
Yeah. So I'm going to break down. I think you said we had a 2, 3, 4-part question. So let me
Yeah, maybe this might be it might be 4 parts. First, let's start
Yeah.
let's start with a high performing front end versus a low performing front end. Where do you see those challenges and also those wins?
You're right. I would say for a high end or a high performing front end, it can really help drive profitable margin that may be leaking in other parts of the pharmacy business, like I just mentioned, right?
Hmm.
If you're driving good patient engagement through promotions, through private label, again, a good alternative and cheaper alternative, so a value for your patients, and even OTC benefit cards, you're going to see some really good profit boosters, right? And so that is, I would say, what I'm seeing as a difference in pharmacies that are performing better in their front end than not. And, an average shopper spends about $388 on OTCs annually. And if you think about how many scripts pharmacies are filling a day, that there are probably a good, 300 patients or more going to the pharmacy each day, right? So the opportunity to take margin on that is huge. But you've got to offer the patient what they want, right? And the patient, they're wanting choice, right? So they're wanting to know that you've got something for me. And this is going back to a little bit of knowing your patient that we talked about, curating a selection. If you,
Hmm.
have a high Hispanic population, have some Hispanic products there that are for them. If you've got, a certain product that's more known in your area, carry that. But then also have the basics, right? Make sure you've got your key categories that is known for a pharmacy. You've got your pain, right? Your pain section has, your good basics. Cough, cold, and allergy. Huge, huge for a pharmacy.
Hmm.
Digestive and then first aid has really been growing over the past few years. And then vitamins, especially knowing how some of the prescription products can cause depletions. Having a very good vitamin and supplement section is extremely helpful. So making sure you have the basics, but also enhancing it with your needs of your local community definitely helps you. So making sure you have the right product, right? Then you want to make sure it's in the right place. You got to make sure that your shelves have product on it, right? Your customers don't think you're going out of business because you've got some empty shelves going on. They need to be neat. They don't want to come in and think that you got these messy shelves. What are you doing in your pharmacy, right? It's a
Hmm.
good first impression to anyone entering your pharmacy. And then lastly, it's got to be at a good price, right? It's got to be at a price that they're expecting, based on where they shop. If you are overpriced from everywhere else they shop, then they're not going to think you're a good deal and they're not going to look at you. But if you're in line with, where they shop, then you know them. So really the basic formula, make sure you have the right product. It's in the right place, right? And it's neat and it's at the right price. That's really the basic retail formula. And so then I flip it to the question of, what's going on in those stores that are not performing as well. Usually they're going to be falling down on one of those. And that's like, because those are your three basic steps.
Hmm.
If you're overpriced, right? They're going to think that, you don't know them and they just can't afford you. So they're never going to think of you for that. So they're not going to buy it. I mean, we've all walked into stores, especially lately, with the way that the labor issues are, and you see shelves that are completely empty, like, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
You think when you walk in and see those shelves, right? Is that like you're thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Like, are they?
Yeah, this is kind of fascinating to me because just walking into so many different types of pharmacies myself and seeing how important improving the customer experience is through the front end of the pharmacy. I mean, increasing sales, optimizing your workflow, but also just the design element factor of it. I think it's something that, I mean, probably it's talked about a lot, in your end, in your circles, when you talk about shelving, lighting, neatness, the entrance, like you said, placement, where the traffic flows in from the pharmacy, making sure that people have good sight lines to see specific products, your focal points, all of it. And then kind of lining that up with your marketing and the overall customer experience. I think if people were just kind of talking about the front end part of a pharmacy in general, people would just think, okay, yeah, I'm just going to put some nice products up there. But I feel like it's so much more than that.
It's so much more. And I mean, because the thing is like I said, it doesn't have to be difficult, like, right? There's a lot of resources out to help there. But the biggest thing is it's retail 101. It's the right product
Mm-hmm.
in the right place at the right price. And then we always at the right promotion, right? So are you putting a deal? Are you putting signage up? Do you have shelf talkers to say, hey, here's what I have? Are you getting their attention, right? Sometimes the promotion could be on the windows before they ever walked in the pharmacy or on the door. A great one. So much goes through the drive-through. Do you have any signage around your drive-through, right? Don't forget about that area. I always like to throw in that fifth P, which is private label, right? Private label is one of the growing categories in the marketplace right now. When you look at inflation, you look at everything that's going on in the marketplace, people are looking at ways to cut corners. And private label is one of those that, customers have learned to trust it, right? It's the same active ingredients as the national brand equivalent, but it's always at a better price. So it's better for the patient, right? They're saving money, getting the same active ingredients. It's better margin for the pharmacy. It's a win-win.
So I want to go back to a little bit of the data around this, and I think you've already touched on a lot of the points, on making your front end successful. What are those contributing factors? But I think an important thing you mentioned about your community and where you're located within those specific areas and where your pharmacy is. How do you identify your customer, and why is it so important to do this?
So I think like on identifying your customers, like you could do a lot of research and going in and like knowing your specific demographics and things like that. I would say the first thing is like, right, is in your pharmacy system. I think the biggest thing is run a report on therapeutics, like, right, and that what I would say is part of knowing what your customer is and knowing from an OTCs. If what some therapeutic, what you're, run the report on therapeutics, see what are the, depletions or, what's going on with that category. Focus on some of those categories, right? So it's a different way of looking at your demographics. I will also say, your wholesalers, your buying groups, a lot of them have a lot of information in which they're wanting to partner, and you can lean on them for some of that information, right?
Mm-hmm.
How should you be pricing your product, for example, right? They can tell you based on where your location is of your pharmacy, what your pricing strategy should be based on just your location, and because they have your location and your competitive pressures within that market. So they can show you a lot of that information. So, and that's where I would say is like there's a lot going on in that pharmacy. Really lean on, the support structures that you have through your wholesalers, through your buying groups to help you be successful. So you're focusing where you need to be. Outside of, running some of the reports and, making sure from a pharmacy perspective in your prescriptions, they usually know their customers coming in and walking that door better than anyone as far as demographics.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps. I think it's the other, like, more behavioral stuff that comes into play by looking at what their prescriptions they're filling And then when you want the information on pricing and stuff, I would really lean on other experts to help on that one. Keep being the best pharmacy that you are, and let some other people help you with that kind of research.
So say a pharmacist hears this and goes and does it, and they dive in, take a deep dive into all the buying habits, the patient mix that's coming in, all of it. How often should they be going back to it, considering how fast things change?
What? Honestly, annually is actually usually pretty good, but buying behaviors don't change that
Mm-hmm.
much, right? You've got some macro trends that are happening, but truly what happens, like I hate to say, buyers are pretty habitual on a lot of things. And and when you look at your health, that is where the OT, your front end, actually you can have a little bit of fun with it, right? Use your front end to, hey, I just heard about a new emerging trend, and I was talking with this pharmacist. I mean, I would say always, keeping in your own peer groups, you get a lot of really good feedback from one another,
Mm-hmm.
and they've had success with something, and you want to know if it's going to work in your area. Like, right, your front end is a great place to test those things, right? Because you can put it in different places in your pharmacy, and if it's not working, you can move it out quickly. You could be more nimble. You don't have to bring in a whole bunch. It's not a huge investment. But I mean, other than some of those new emergings, right, which happens a lot in your supplements, your vitamin sections, that's where like what's the vitamin trend of the month kind of thing. Other than that, the rest of it is not, I would say it's not super trendy. And so they're sticking pretty habitual to, retail buying habits. It's surprisingly.
Interesting. How have you seen any changes through, customer interaction, customer buying habits? And I know you just said, customers are pretty habitual, but even if you look at customer habits over the last, say, 20 years, has there been a big change?
I think what has happened, and I mean, I think we all know from like a COVID, what really changed. A lot of people got really comfortable ordering online really
Mm-hmm.
fast,
For
right?
sure. For
If they
sure.
didn't before, they are now. Um, and what is funny is the research, and and as I travel around, and what I'm hearing, we were just in a manufacturer a couple of weeks ago, and I think everyone would think that people want to buy everything online now, right? It's all you ever hear: e-commerce, e-commerce, e-commerce. A lot of the data is actually showing, especially even younger generations, like, Gen Z, they like to go in the stores and shop.
Yeah.
And, and I'm like, you're right. I wish I could say I was Gen Z, kind of a little bit, older than that. And I'm just like, no, give me my click list and I'm good. Like, right? It's like I kind of got used to it, and I've got a few other things on it. But the Gen Z data is actually going back, I would say almost a little bit more pre-COVID, to the like they like to go in. They like a little bit of experience. What I think is great for the independent pharmacists too is they are very shop local. They're very much like want to be part of a community and support that community, which I think positions the independent pharmacist. So I think it's the key. So within that, I don't know if I'd say buying trends, but if I look at Gen Z and where, and you got to watch them because they're coming up fast with their purchasing influence. They are growing extremely fast in that purchasing influence and buying power. And they are probably in a few years going to overtake even where your boomers are. So within Gen Z, they like that local feel and being part of the community. They like to know that, that whoever they're purchasing from,
Mm-hmm.
what is their social policies like, right? That, are they doing good? How are they helping the community as well? So, they're very eco-friendly and looking for different things such as that. So, so shopping local, but also making sure that the um, business is also supporting social needs. They're being socially responsible.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're very much into that. And again, like they want to go into stores. They want that experience.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm a Gen Xer, and there's something about still going into a store and, like you said, getting the customer experience that, I don't know, kind of holds a special place for me. But also, I think it's also selective. So I know, folks kind of in my age group that still like to shop online, for certain things. But when it comes to other things, they rather go into a store, get the experience. And for me, that's a pharmacy. Like if I'm going to go to a pharmacy and pick up my prescriptions and look for something else. Yeah, I definitely want to be in there and I want to talk to the pharmacist, make sure I'm buying the right thing. And I think that holds true for some other things that I shop for as well. Is that something that you see across the board from other age groups like boomers, millennials, and caregivers, or are they all a little bit still different?
They have, I think like your different generations have slight variations to certain things. So like your Gen Xers, they're a little bit in between, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
depending what their need is where how they're going to go shop, right? What you're seeing with your Gen Zs is they like to go in there. They will shop more online for like I would say like habitual things that or like I hate to say right TikTok shop. They'll go through some things that are like more kind of influencer generated on some things.
Oh,
But
for sure. Yep.
they want to go in. They want to see things. The big difference I would say in some buying patterns is Gen Z there's a lot of research in advance, right? So they'll go through and this is back to this self-care, right? They're looking, they're exploring, they're investigating before they, most of the time even come into the pharmacy, and then they're still looking for more information, which is one reason independent pharmacy plays in such a good spot because like right studies show that people trust their pharmacist even more than they trust their doctor, right? So there's such a trusted part into that
Mm-hmm.
health decisions. So, so I think that's a big difference that's coming in. So some of the generations is the Gen Z is they're doing some more research before they're walking in, but they want that experience. They'll go online for, if it's from an influencer kind of thing, like right, TikTok shop or something from there, or
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit more habitual and it's convenience, right? If it's convenient and I need it quick, then they'll go, make those purchases. But other than that, they're back in store.
So
Um,
we talked a little bit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that we talked a little bit about, identifying the customer. You just kind of gave us a great breakdown of the types of customers that are out there. But when it comes to identifying the health priorities in your community, the things that your community needs, how does one go about that, and why should they go about doing that? And why is that so important?
Tell me more what you mean.
So if I'm in a area that, I don't know, say my area has a lot of folks that have diabetes.
Mhm.
How, if I'm a pharmacist and I don't know that yet, how do I get to know that? How do I find that out?
Yeah, I think a biggest part of that with for the pharmacist is just, being more in tune and most pharmacists like right is reaching out to the other healthcare providers in their area, right? Is if you've got a hospital in your area, connecting with the hospital, making connections there, understanding what's happening. If you've got, some big clinics, health, departments, things, working with them truly to understand because right, all of the diagnosis, they start at, the doctor level. So really connecting with them, even, a big part is, working with long-term care centers and, seniors, areas, maybe even schools, but really being a part of that community and that healthcare community and
Mhm.
that you're an extension of it. So by talking with them, you're really going to find out kind of what the needs are, knowing where it is. Um, and that's probably the number one way.
And all this can pretty much roll up and you think can help the front end of the pharmacy. Again, when we're talking about product mix, knowing your customer, and everything else in between.
Yes. I mean, like a big part of, again, I'm saying if, on that front end of your pharmacy, run the therapeutics report, like right through, your pharmacy system, understand what's going on, like, right, what are your patient's needs? And that's going to help balance out with what you need in the front end. And then your, wholesalers, your buying groups, they've got a lot of good data to share on what's growing in the marketplace, what's, trending, to really kind of help guide that on, some details that may not be necessarily in that pharmacy system, to think of, other things to help out. That's going to really help determine what the right product mix is, right? And then they can also help again with the right pricing, and then even help you, how to promote it inside your pharmacy.
All right, so now I'm just going to throw the ball right into your court, Kim.
Okay.
How does Cardinal Health help with all this?
Great question. My favorite question, maybe. I mean, the way that we look at it, at Cardinal Health is, we know there's so much going on in the pharmacies today. Like I said, I was just down in North Carolina, and I'm amazed by, just watching everything this pharmacy is doing to help diversify, their business, right? Because everything is going on from a reimbursement, Medicare renegotiations. You hear it. There's something different going on all the time. And they're keeping up with that change. So the front end portion is, it's not what they went to pharmacy school for, and we know that. But yet we do know that it could be a very good profit booster to help offset some maybe leaky buckets that are happening elsewhere in the pharmacy. So what we really try to do is be as much of an easy button for them on their front end as we can be, right? We're working with manufacturers to really activate manufacturer trade fund dollars that would go to the pharmacy to help. We can do promotional circulars, we can do planograms for them, we can do shelf signage, window signage, just anything that, and we can make it all turnkey, end caps. We want to make it as easy as possible, right? Because our favorite thing is like set it and forget it. Like, right? We'll
That's right.
have everything ready, take it out of the box, put it on the shelf, easy peasy, you're good to go, right? We try to really make it as turnkey as possible. Even looking at, we can send third-party merchandising support out to pharmacies to really help make sure that the promotions, like all of the tags, the circular, everything is set up and ready to go in a way that can actually maximize their promotions, right? So kind of sending in some experts in just to help take care of that for them. And almost none of it, almost all of that is actually at no expense to the pharmacy, right? That's where we're working with the manufacturers, because, they have these trade fund dollars that they want to help support pharmacies. So we work the manufacturers to actually activate all of those promotional support for the retail independent. So that's how we really help, is we really try to, put those manufacturer dollars to work for the independent pharmacy to make sure they have the right product in the right place at the right price and with the right promotion.
Well, I got to say, as someone that has seen your team in action, I think it's pretty remarkable about all the amount of detail you guys go through and what you do to help these pharmacies. So we definitely see it and appreciate it.
Well, we love doing it. We're a little bit retail junkies. Almost the entire team has some type of retail background. So that is what the team kind of cut our teeth on. And we love bringing it to the independents and continuing to help them, be successful and help them thrive in any way possible.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, with all that said, guys, I want to say thanks to Kim for joining us on the show to provide all we need to know about optimizing the front end in your pharmacy. And to all of you, thanks for listening to today's episode of the Cardinal Health Counter Talk podcast. And as a reminder, if this is your first time listening, make sure you subscribe and download the Cardinal Health Counter Talk podcast wherever you get your podcast. Thanks again to Kim for being on the episode, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.